Getting custom manufactured parts can be a difficult task. Some local shops are great, but some require order minimums or just won't pick up the phone if you aren't a large company. That's where Xometry comes in. Xometry is trusted by engineers and designers at NASA, BMW, Bosch, and more. Simply upload the design file you want to be manufactured and boom! In a matter of seconds, you'll get an instant quote and access to dozens of manufacturing processes like CNC machining, sheet cutting and fabrication, 3D printing, injection molding, and more. Plus, you'll have plenty of delivery window options and prices available to suit your budget. Worry less and get the parts you need manufactured with Xometry so you can get back to building. Xometry, where big ideas are built.
Yeah, a couple of things for me that I think stand out are one is really a curiosity and openness to learning. Generally engineers have that, right? And so if you want to be a leader in a technical space, that's a good place to start.
Hello and welcome to the Being an Engineer podcast. Today we're speaking with Travis de Jong, who is Director of Technology Development at CQ Medical, where they are a global leader in patient radiotherapy positioning and healthcare innovations. Travis's background includes expertise in medical devices, product development, failure mode and effects analysis, SolidWorks, and Composites. Travis, thank you so much for being with us on the show today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So what made you decide to be an engineer?
That's always a great question. Pretty typical probably. I enjoyed math and science growing up and trying to understand how things worked. I think a lot of us probably started that way. And then in high school, I had a science fair project and was able to go to the International Science and Engineering Fair. And that kind of hooked me. So once you have that opportunity, it really kept me down that path. And I just kept going on it, and it was really enjoyable going through school and learning all those things.
Nice. Do you remember anything you saw in particular at that fair that kind of convinced you, oh yeah, this is where I want to be?
I think it was really cool. So as a senior in high school, you're there with a bunch of other high school kids that are coming up with amazing things. And I was just, it was really, I didn't feel like I belonged, honestly, with the project that we had with a friend and I, but what everybody was doing was really interesting. And there's just so much cool stuff out there that you can do with an engineering background and really kind of taking what you learn in science and math and applying that to the real world. So, that was really neat. There was the Human Genome Project was pretty big at that time, actually. And that's one of the things I remember being worked on. So really interesting.
I'm curious, when you got your first engineering job and actually started doing the day-to-day of, what an engineer does, did you think to yourself, yeah, this is what I had in mind as I was going through school to become an engineer, or was it different in any way than what you had expected?
I would say probably a little of both. So, one of the things I always think of is as you go through college, whether it's an undergrad or a graduate degree, I mean, you're learning how to learn in a sense. And, so I've actually only worked at this company in my career. Coming in, I had no idea about radiotherapy. It was all new to me. And so I had to go and learn as much as I could about radiation therapy, how it worked, how our products interacted with it, and what we were really trying to do to, help a patient get treated in the best way possible. And so that I didn't really expect, you expect to have some level of knowledge coming out of college. And I felt like I had to start from scratch in a lot of ways. So that was surprising to me. And then, as you get into some of the calculations and the work around designing product, I think that felt a little more familiar then.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what it is you do, the radiotherapy, CQ Medical? What's your focus there?
Yeah, so our focus is patient positioning for radiation therapy, which means we're making everything from the table that a patient lays on to anything that's holding them in position while they get treated. And so for radiation therapy, what they're doing is they're targeting a tumor and trying to minimize the impact to healthy tissue around the tumor as it's treated. And our product is really intended to help with that. So it keeps them in position. And a patient's going to come back, that it can vary, but typically 30 times for their treatment. And so we want them to be in almost the same position every time, or as close as we can, because it helps the clinic get the patient through and make sure they're in position and then get the treatment done as effectively as possible.
Perfect. Thank you. So you are a director there, or the director, which is, that's a pretty big position, a director level. And I'm sure there are people listening to this episode thinking, someday that's what I would like to do. I would like to be at a director level engineering position. Can you talk a little bit about how did you get there? What do you think some of the most important factors have been for you achieving this position?
Yeah, a couple of things for me that I think stand out are one is really a curiosity and openness to learning. And I talked about that earlier. I think, generally engineers have that, right? And so if you want to be a leader in a technical space, that's a good place to start. And as my career progressed, I found myself, I think caring about, more interested in the bigger picture, probably, first of all, like a little more strategy and some of those things, but also just caring about people and wanting them to grow and helping those around me be better. So at one point, I kind of reevaluated where I was, and I had to make a decision. Do I want to continue down a technical path? Do I want to be a project manager? I kind of was, I was interested in both of those things and the exposure I'd had. And this was sort of a middle road. But also let me, like I said, help others grow too. And that's something that's kind of been instilled in me, from an early age. My parents were both teachers. And so I think that kind of rubbed off on me.
I know what you mean. My parents were both teachers as well. And, looking back, I really appreciate actually a lot of the lessons that I learned having educators as parents. As you have gone through your journey into leadership, has there ever been a time where you felt like maybe there was some imposter syndrome, like, oh, why am I here? I don't deserve this. Anything like that?
Yeah, this question made me laugh a little bit because I think if you remember my response to you when you asked if I was available for a podcast, I told you I wasn't sure I had anything to share.
Which most people say, by the way, that is a common answer, and it's usually wrong. But please go ahead.
I think you definitely have that feeling. And I think about, I actually listened to a few of the podcasts, like I mentioned earlier, the one where you talked with Andy Wells, hits me, where you talked a lot about humility. And I think humility is really important. Sometimes that comes with the potential to feel that imposter syndrome. And so finding that place where you're confident in the things you know, but you're open to learning and growing in areas where you're less comfortable or don't know as well. And I think that's kind of how I try to deal with it, is going to that curious place. There's always somebody that knows more than me. In any area. And so, I can learn from them and we're going to get a better solution if I can work with, the best and, being able to do that. I just go back to that, like, we're improving things for people. We're growing, we're making better product. If I'm working with people that are smarter than me and better than me.
Yeah. What did Steve Jobs say? We don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do.
Exactly.
And I love that you mentioned Andy's episode. That is one of my favorite all-time episodes. We're well over 200 episodes now. That is just, I don't know, maybe number 1 or 2. Listen to this episode first, everyone, for sure. But then, if you haven't, go check out Andy Wells' episode. What an inspiring message he had.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Yeah, what kind of trends are you seeing in the medical device industry these days? Whether it's something about manufacturing or costs or materials or processes, what kind of patterns are you seeing emerge?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think additive manufacturing certainly is a big aspect, and those additive manufacturing companies are starting to focus more and more on some of the requirements for medical. You see that happening quite a bit. Biocompatibility, for instance, is a challenge, and our stuff is not that bad. I mean, it's limited duration contact, so the patient's just laying on it or it's touching their skin. But there are challenges with that, and additive manufacturing brings some other challenges into it, whether you're using kind of virgin material or recycled material, and some of those type of things make it harder to test through that. But I think there's a big focus on additive manufacturing and what it can do for the medical industry, ways to bring costs down on lower volume product and things like that. So I think that's one of the trends that I definitely see. And then AI continues to be a big area of discussion. And whether that's something you're doing within your company, or if your partners in the medical industry are doing that, evaluating what that means for you and what that means to the products that you have, is going to be something that you've got to be thinking about in the next few years here.
Has CQ Medical started incorporating much additive manufacturing into their products yet, or is it still kind of exploratory?
Yeah, I would say we've got a number of products that do utilize additive manufacturing. It's not widely used yet, but we continue to do testing and look for ways to implement that where it makes sense.
Nice. As you have worked with different engineers over the years, what are some of the traits that you've seen, or the behaviors or habits that are present in the best engineers? And then if it's a different answer, the same question, but with regard to engineering teams.
Sure. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's that curiosity and willingness to learn. Like I think that having that as part of what you do and who you are, will open up doors for you that are not there if you're not willing to be curious and to ask those questions. And, sometimes I think engineers can feel like we're supposed to know, we come out of school or we've got the experience and we're supposed to know a lot of the answers, but there's a lot of things that I haven't dealt with, I haven't experienced, I haven't worked on. And there's so much to learn. So being able to do that, I think, those are the really successful people, or the ones that ask those questions. And then, communication is such a huge aspect of it as well. And I think, that's a really soft skill for an engineer to look at, but, being able to communicate, whether it be with team members, with, other people in your company, or the partners that you're working with, vendors, OEMs, like that is a huge piece of being able to understand what is needed and developing a product. So I think that's the other thing. And then it ties into collaboration with anybody that you're working with, so you can understand the needs.
Are there areas of communication where you've seen breakdowns more frequently than other areas, whether it's between like specific roles or in certain contexts or environments, anything like that comes to mind?
One of the things that I talk about with the teams here a lot is we tend to make assumptions, and lots of them, whether it's because you've worked with somebody for a long time, or you've done a lot of projects here, there's a lot of assumptions that can be made and that others might not go to. And so if you have a new engineer, for instance, he doesn't have those assumptions built in, and we've got to communicate those to really help them understand what the project looks like. So I think that's part of it. And then, as we get to, with the pandemic, especially as you go to more hybrid work or remote work, just a willingness to, it's not pick up a phone anymore, but hop on Teams or Zoom or whatever it is. I think you can have such a much better conversation with somebody in that way rather than trying to email or instant message. There's just kind of a different level of energy that you get from seeing a person face to face or talking on the phone, and being willing to do that and take a little time out of your day to talk to somebody that way will probably benefit you greatly in whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree. It's so easy nowadays to hop on a Teams call, right? It requires very little effort. In fact, I'd say it's easier than typing a message.
A lot of times, I agree.
Yeah. What are the most valuable technical skills that you want to see in your engineering teams? And do you think that you're seeing enough of those skills?
Yeah, obviously, a really good understanding of the math and science coming out of school, and being able to, do the calculations but then really tying that to the real world. I think depending on the education that you've had, you may have had different levels of that. And so being able to practically understand what some of those calculations mean, and where there might be differences, right? What are the assumptions you're making that might be wrong, or that might impact the results of what you're expecting? And so really that connection of the theory that you've learned to practice is a huge piece. And I think that's what I want to see in the design teams. That's what I want to see as they work through it, and then critical thinking through problems that come up, because we're going to run into those. Things aren't going to go the way you expect, and you have to be able to take that on and walk through what's going on and ask the right questions.
I think the practical experience is so critical and important. I like to say that doing is better than learning about doing. Of course, we need to learn, right, to some extent, and then we need to start doing. There's an individual I know who he's really good with CAD, but he doesn't have the experience of a product designer and not a whole lot of mechanical aptitude, arguably. And so even though he knows CAD really well, he knows where all the buttons are, he can create some really nice looking shapes, he struggles when it comes to actually designing something that's going to be manufactured or that can be assembled easily, that's going to be cost effective. So that practical experience is so critical, I think. And, that the only way to get it is to actually go out and do something.
Yeah, I remember one of the first parts I had design work on, and just kind of, I learned a lot. You bring that back to the manufacturing guys, and they kind of look at you like,
oh, that's cute.
Fact, yeah. You can't do this, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot to learn depending on how things are being manufactured, right? There's so many different processes, but just being introduced to those and being willing to talk to the guys making the stuff, right? I think that's really educational as well, and exposing yourself to those type of things is going to make you a better designer in the long run.
Definitely. Yeah. And of course, there are plenty of disciplines within engineering. My background is a lot heavier on the design than some of the other options out there. So that's what I tend to talk about a lot. Sometimes people ask me, how can I get that experience if that's not what I'm doing at my job? My role is focused on something else. Maybe that's what I want to be doing, but I don't have the opportunities to do that. How can I get that experience? Or if it's a student, right, that is still finishing up school, hasn't even entered the workforce yet. And I think one of the greatest things that a person can do, an engineer can do to develop those skills, understanding manufacturing and design, is just to go out and get some cheap products. I mean, go to Goodwill or something and find some plastic injection molded housings, take them apart, see how they work inside. You can find some cool stuff that's, pretty cheap. And then even start modeling some of those parts. Try to recreate the assembly in CAD. And there probably will be features or aspects that you don't understand, and that's fine. Identify them, and then approach a more seasoned engineer and say, hey, I noticed this thing, but I don't understand why would they do that? What do you think? And getting feedback like that. I think that's a pretty inexpensive and effective way to get some really good practical experience.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would even tie to, YouTube's a great resource, honestly. If you want to see what something being machined looks like, something being printed looks like, something being injection molded looks like. I think that helps wrap your head around some of the constraints that each manufacturing process has. And then, that in conjunction with having your hands on something, like you said, I think there are ways to learn without working in a machine shop or working in an injection molding factory. There's some opportunities out there that young engineers can take and really take the initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me take a quick break, share that our company, Pipeline Design and Engineering, develops new and innovative manufacturing processes for complex products, then implements them into manual fixtures or fully automated machines to dramatically reduce production costs and produce improved production yields for OEMs. Today, we're speaking with Travis de Jong. Travis, what are some of the biggest obstacles or challenges that you face as an engineering leader in the medical device space?
Yeah, we're kind of a small company, I would say. So we're doing a lot of different things. Everybody does a lot of different things. And I think keeping teams focused is one of the challenges, honestly. We really need to, we rely on our cross-functional teams, quality, manufacturing engineering, design engineering. They're all interacting on a regular basis. And we all have our own, everybody has their own projects that they want to get done. And so how do we work together? How do we stay focused? And when problems arise, how do we sort of triage those in the way that we need to keep people focused and the product that we want to develop moving forward? That's one of the big challenges. It's easy to get distracted. I think especially today.
Any pro tips that you have been able to learn or identify over the years about how to stay focused on something and avoid those distractions?
Setting time aside. I think everybody has full calendars, and looking for ways to create working time is really important. So, whether you're working from home or working in the office, finding a place to focus when you need to do that deep work is really important. And I get to do less and less of it as a leader, less of that design work, but I think being able to set aside time and be in a place that's less distracted. So turn off email or shut down Teams, and give yourself an hour or 2 hours to really do that focused work. And don't let yourself get distracted. Put your phone away, right? I mean, my kids are always on their phone, and it's like, how do you concentrate on anything? So
yeah, I don't think they do. But not your kids, but my.
No, you're right. My kids don't either.
How about the medical device industry at large? What are some of the challenges that you see facing the medical device industry these days?
It seems like we get to continue dealing with increasing regulations, and that just becomes more and more challenging. So, countries, European Union, US, wherever you're selling product has their own set of regulations, and those are important. But it seems to get more and more cumbersome as time goes along. And, that hurts efficiencies a little bit. It drives cost up. It increases overhead. We need to do the right thing, and there need to be things in place to do that. But hopefully it's not just regulations for the sake of regulations. And Sometimes it feels that way.
Understandable. Within the regulatory environment, is there any area in particular that you feel like is that's maybe going a little bit too far?
Yeah, I mean that's hard to say. I think, each country tries to come up with their own things, and some of it's protecting themselves, some of it's trying to give companies internal to those countries an advantage. And I think that can be a little bit damaging. I think if you want to have sort of a global environment in healthcare and access for everybody, is there consolidation of some of these regulations that can happen? Seems unlikely. I think it's not. The EU is a decent example of being able to do that. But yeah. How do you bring that together? How do you allow some efficiencies for the medical device manufacturers? Again, we don't want dangerous product. We don't want product that's going to hurt people. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do. But finding that balance is a challenge.
Well, that answer might feed into the answer for the next question here. So I may have anchored you too strongly. Maybe I should mix up the order, but I'll go ahead with it. What's a tool that, if it existed, would allow your team to be, 10 times more productive, whether it's faster, better quality, better communication, whatever it is? And this tool does not need to be within the realms of known physics. It can be, anything that you think would be just able to dramatically increase your team's effectiveness or productivity.
Yeah. So, as we talk about regulations, I think one of those things is, can we be more consolidated? What if there was, just a couple or one overall regulatory sort of oversight, and we could be more efficient that way. The other one that I have here, that as I was preparing, was a little bit more fun. I put teleportation because. So being present for things, getting your hands on things, we talked about that earlier. Being able to do that at low cost and with low time commitment would be fantastic. Whether you're teleporting people or product, I think that'd be a really helpful tool to accelerate development.
I love that. I laughed a little bit because as I was trying to get that question out, that was one of the examples that came to mind, but I thought, no, I'm not going to say that. And then you said it. That's just perfect. Teleportation. That's great. Okay. If you had no limits on your resources, time, money, whatever it was, what is the one thing that you would do for your company to help it achieve its business goals?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think it's looking at how we better and more efficiently train our technical people, train our technical resources, and how do we do it quickly? How do we do it and get them up to speed? I think that's always a challenge. You want people to hit the ground running, but that's hard to do, and training takes time, right? I mean, we've got to have our engineers train other engineers, and that's really important. We want to do that well and make sure that people can be successful as they come on board. Those resources, the human resources are a big part of what we do, and so to be able to train them efficiently and effectively is really important. And I think I never have enough time to do that. So.
I really like that answer. We at Pipeline are doing a volunteer program called CAD Club right now, where we open our doors to students in the area who want to learn a little bit about engineering and CAD. And it's middle school kids and high school kids. And it's been really rewarding to watch these kids learn some CAD skills. They're to the point now where they can actually at least put together some shapes, right? They don't have a ton of experience, but they can put together some shapes and design some simple products. And our vision for this is to take it to a point where we have multiple levels of courses, so kind of a beginner, intermediate, advanced. And once they pass the advanced course, then they really do have some legitimate, basic, but legitimate engineering skills in terms of CAD, maybe putting together some drawings, some simple assembly work, things like that. And then the goal is to start placing them as interns at local engineering companies. And the hope is that we do exactly what it is you're talking about, right? We start getting these engineers trained earlier on. So it's not like, okay, I graduated college and I have zero experience whatsoever in the real world. Pay me my salary and let's do this. But they actually come to their first job with some practical experience. So I'm right there with you on that one. I think that's super important.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds like a great program. I mean, just getting kids involved early on, just even letting them see what it's like a little bit and whether that's something they're interested in or not. Right. I mean,
yeah.
You have to be pretty committed if you want to be an engineer as you head to school. And if you don't like it, that can be pretty rough. So yeah, I think giving them the opportunity to see that is great.
Yeah. How do you see the future of medical devices changing in the U.S. over the next 5 years?
Well, we talked about it a little bit before. I think AI is still going to be just such a huge thing, and what that means for each part of the industry, and how we can use it effectively, efficiently, safely. There's a lot that goes into that. If you start thinking about, computers looking at CT scans or MRIs and kind of doing early diagnoses and then that being reviewed. How do you do some of those things? How do you take advantage of it and be more effective to help deliver care to more people? And how do you avoid the pitfalls that might bring? So I think that's a huge aspect of where we're headed in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Anything else come to mind?
I think you also see consolidation within the medical device field. So we're part of that. We combined with another company a year ago, and so as you see that happening, what's the impact on that? How does that change things as there are fewer and fewer companies? There are startups as well, but it does seem like consolidation in general is happening in the medical device industry. So yeah, what does that mean for providers as well and hospitals?
That's a really good question. Something I've thought about as well. We're in the automation space, and there's been a lot of acquisitions of smaller automation companies like ours. I probably get, 3-4 emails a week from these M&A, firms who are looking for their next victim. But as that happens, and there become less and less companies, and they're controlled by fewer and fewer, executive teams, how does that start to affect overall pricing in the industry and affordability? And there's a pretty significant trickle-down effect, I think, in there that remains to be seen how that's actually going to play out in the end.
Yeah, for sure. It's coming, and we just have to be. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, and hopefully, it's not worse for patients.
Yeah, maybe it ends up being better.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Keep our fingers crossed. Well, just one or two more questions here, and then we'll wrap things up. Specifically within the context of your role as an engineer, even though arguably you're not doing that much engineering, individual contributor work, but within that role, you'll always be an engineer. What is one thing that frustrates you, and conversely, one thing that brings you joy?
Yeah, I think one of the frustrations that gets me is when things get in the way of collaboration. Because I think that's really how we can move forward and be effective. We all have different skill sets. We all have different ways we focus and get work done. And we have to be able to collaborate with each other. And when there are barriers, whatever they may be, and there are lots of them today, it's frustrating to see that. And you spend a lot of time working through those things. So that's probably one of my biggest frustrations. what brings me joy? It's the flip side of the coin. People working together to achieve a common goal. I was an athlete, kind of growing up, playing team sports, and I think that translates into any team, right? So as we work together and you accomplish something, that feeling that you and those people around you accomplish that is just so amazing, and I love that.
Awesome. I'm going to steal this next one from Tim Ferriss. If you could put anything you wanted on a billboard that all of the engineers in the world were going to see, especially those who are considering going into the medical device space, what would that billboard say?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Lots of pressure.
Yeah. Lots of pressure.
How about this? What's one of the things that billboard might say? Doesn't have to be the thing.
I think it's to be open to opportunities. And if you see something that interests you and that you're curious about, go learn about it. Go find out about it.
Terrific. Great. All right. Well, Travis, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And you absolutely did have a lot to share. That question is answered definitively. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity, Aaron. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. On LinkedIn, you can find me, Travis Dion, CQ Medical is the company, and feel free to reach out to me on there.
Awesome. All right. Well, Travis, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Aaron.
I'm Aaron Monker, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.